Chris Pratt entered the View studio with the quiet confidence of someone used to performing under pressure. He walked to his seat across from the hosts, wearing jeans and a jacket that spoke more of rugged roles than Hollywood glamour. Meghan Markle had been here last time, but today was different. Today was about big-screen action, Hollywood politics, and yes, culture wars. Whoopi welcomed him politely. She said, "Chris Pratt is here to talk about his new movie and about some of the political takes you've been making. Thanks for joining us." The audience clapped, but it was polite applause. Chris nodded, voice ready. The first questions were easy: movie scenes, co-stars, filming locations. Chris answered with warmth, recalling late nights on set, joking with stunt coordinators, but his tone held a seriousness reserved for bigger topics. Whoopi brought it into the real world. She said, "We know you've shared some views online lately about family values, religious freedom, and patriotism. A lot of people want to hear why you're speaking out now." Chris took a breath before answering. "I'm speaking out because as public figures, we influence more than box office numbers. We shape cultural conversation. And I feel like some of the conversation coming from my world hasn't reflected the dignity I grew up honoring." He paused. "I steady. That means family, responsibility, a sense of caring. I think people outside of Hollywood feel ignored, maybe even mocked. That wasn't the intention of my career, but I've watched how it looked to them." Sarah leaned in, sounding thoughtful. "Do you feel you owe something to that side of America? To those people who see you in cowboy boots instead of couture gowns?" Chris nodded slowly. "I think I owe honesty. Not pandering. Not divisiveness. Honesty about where I come from and who I believe we are. I grew up in a community that respected service, that saw public life as joining, not dividing. And when I saw film circles dismissing that as small-minded, it troubled me." Sonny spoke next, measured and pointed. "People worry your stance creates a wedge, not by calling people together, but by calling them out. They see this as culture war politics. What do you say?" Chris's face tightened, but his voice stayed calm. "Check my past. I've worked with people across belief systems. I've donated to charities that defend everyone's rights. So if honesty seems like wedge creating, maybe authenticity feels extreme now." Meghan had left, but her memories of audience divisions still hung in the room. Joy spoke up, voice sharp. "Chris, Hollywood is liberal. Very liberal. If you're speaking conservative to an audience that rejects it, isn't that antagonistic by design?" Chris replied gently, "Maybe it is. But so is telling half the country they're unwelcome. That's not my goal. But I won't apologize for speaking as you would too, if everything around you told you your values didn't count." The audience was settling into uneasy silence. Some nodded. Some frowned. None clapped. That aisle of quiet was thick with tension. Sarah tried to lighten the mood. "Your new movie is getting great reviews. Isn't that what matters? Films, not political commentary." Chris's tone shifted slightly, serious again. "Art isn't just escapism. It offers reflection. And if we only look at popcorn entertainment and ignore the world we live in, we stop being storytellers. We become escapists." The balance had tilted. The room felt smaller. And the next question would push him, and everyone, to a breaking point. The question came from Whoopi, but it cut deeper than she might have intended. "Let's talk about guns. You shared a photo of your family with firearms and called it a Sunday ritual. That sparked anger. Isn't that tone deaf right after shootings?" Chris didn't flinch. His voice was low but steady. "That photo wasn't about politics. It was about responsibility. My father taught me firearms are not symbols. They're tools that require respect. That ritual is about education, not aggression." Sarah raised an eyebrow. She said, "But in a studio where most people are terrified by that imagery, it reads differently." Chris replied, "Then maybe we need to remind ourselves what fear looks like and what respect looks like." Joy Behar leaned forward, voice sharp. "Your respect looks like privilege. Not everyone can have a safe place with guns around." Chris's face softened. "I get that. I grew up in a cabin where people hunted their food. That safe place was built on context. When you understand why something is there, it loses its power to scare." Sonny interjected, "But guns have killed more children than any ritual could fix. Doesn't that matter to you?" Chris paused, measured. It matters more than anything. That's why I support mental health and background checks. But the answer isn't taking tools away from people who use them responsibly. The host shifted uncomfortably. Candace's absence still echoed. The conversation had turned raw. Whoopi tried for calm. Let's pivot to your religious views. You've said you believe God is more important than politics. Chris nodded, tone unflinching. My faith gives me moral clarity. It doesn't make me right. It keeps me aware of who I'm supposed to serve. Sarah said, but what about LGBTQ rights? Some say your faith makes you intolerant. Chris's voice tightened, still gentle. Faith tells me to love everyone, not to judge them. My values taught me empathy, not exclusion. Joy's voice crackled with tension. Love doesn't exclude bathroom rights. That matters to real people. Chris replied softly. Then let's face that tension together. Let's talk specifics without demonizing faith. The audience was pinned between surprises, some leaning toward agreement, others recoiling. No applause. No boos yet. Sonny leaned in. But don't you realize you're stirring conflict? You're promising unity but baiting debate. Chris answered evenly. I'm promising honesty. And honesty doesn't avoid conflict. It embraces it. Otherwise, we're polite about injustice. The tension shifted again. Quiet clapped, small, scattered, under the surface. He paused. I came here to talk about my film. I'm proud of that work. But I knew sitting here would mean speaking about who I am. No filters. No scripts. Just the man behind the roles. If that feels like a clash, maybe it's because what Hollywood sells isn't what most Americans live. The room was momentarily still. Whoopi tried to close. We'll be right back. But Chris Pratt's words lingered. Chris remained standing as Whoopi signaled the crew. He exhaled softly, eyes steady on the hosts. The tension between his unpolished authenticity and the polished expectations of the view was thick enough to taste. Joy leaned forward again, voice tight. Chris, you talk about serving responsibly, speaking honestly, yet your views are seen as tone-deaf at times. Why not just stick to movies? Chris softened his stance, but not his resolve. Because stories matter. People look at me and see Hollywood. But I look at them and see real struggles, moments of doubt, pain, triumph. If I only deliver fictional heroes, I'm ignoring my responsibility as a public figure. He had their full attention now. Sarah whispered. But what about the backlash? You risk your career by wading into politics. Chris's eyes flicked upward, unwavering. If risking comfort for truth means people stop asking questions, then yes, I'll risk my career. Sonny interjected forcefully. Not everyone should get that pass. Some of your views hurt people, especially LGBTQ youth watching your movies. Chris's voice grew firm. I don't hate anyone. I love people. That includes the LGBTQ community. My faith calls me to protect the vulnerable, not judge them. Joy's tone grew frustrated. But do you understand why some people feel judged anyway? Chris nodded. I do. And I'm listening now. I want to know how to show love without judgment. I want to learn. That's hard work, and it's not about being woke. It's about being human. Whoopi seemed pensive. So you're open to changing, if shown a better way? Chris's voice softened. I'm always open. I just won't change who I am to fit someone else's definition. He paused, shoulders easing. The room seemed to shrink around him. Then he said quietly, we've lost something in public discourse. Our capacity to disagree without declaring war. We can talk about family, faith, honesty, justice, all with respect. The hosts absorbed that. No applause, no jeering, just the weight of an unfiltered moment. When the show returned, Chris remained standing. His gaze held steady, as if preparing for the final act. Whoopi glanced at her co-hosts, but didn't interrupt. There was no applause, just the anticipation of truth about to land. Chris took a breath. I grew up watching The View. I admired its energy, its courage to ask. But I also saw the nights it felt more like a stage than a conversation. He stepped closer to the camera, voice low. Tonight, I sat here speaking from conviction, not to win likes, not to appease networks, but to remind anyone watching, you don't have to buy popular opinions to matter. Sarah looked uncertain. That may be true, but viewers want clarity. Sometimes honesty looks like confusion. Chris nodded. Honesty doesn't always look neat, but it needs a chance. Joy rubbed her temples. Chris, did you come here to mend or to provoke? Chris's eyes softened. To heal. But I won't shy away from what provokes us into reflection. Sunny spoke last. So what do you really want from this conversation? Chris paused thoughtfully. I want us to remember that behind every view is a person, someone with fear, dreams, love. That's what stories are for, and that's why I speak when I do. Not for controversy, for connection. The room went quiet. Then Chris closed gently. If we can disagree without losing respect, if we can listen without raising walls, then maybe we're not so far from the characters I play. Characters who face fire and don't back down, who respect their enemies, but still stand their ground. I'm just asking us to embody that, on screen, on this show, in this country. He nodded at the hosts. Thank you. I hope it wasn't too loud. Then he walked off the stage without fanfare, leaving behind an entire room realizing the conversation had changed. The cameras pulled back. The audience sat in stunned silence. No music, no cutaways, just the echo of something rare, real dialogue in a time desperate for nuance. And as the credits rolled, one truth remained unspoken but clear. Sometimes the most explosive thing you can do on national television is simply speak your truth with calm.